Hello, everyone. Today we have a very special guest, Jade Iwasaka Nieder. She's a doctor from Brazil who just matched into radiology in the US. We will talk about her journey, why she chose radiology, how she studied for her exams, her research experience, and her tips for other doctors who want to train in the US. Jade, thank you for being here to start. Please tell us about yourself.
Okay, so first, thank you so much for inviting me, Irving. I really hope that anything that I talk can help someone. And also, I'm available to answer questions if anyone wants to talk after this interview or in the comments. So about myself, I'm from Brazil, as you said. I was born in the city called Belém, is in the north of Brazil, in the Amazon region. And I lived there 25 years. Then I came to the US around 3 years ago because I was in the pursuit of this residency path, right? And other things about myself that are not related to this process, I really like dancing, I like going out with my friends, and I really like helping other people that are trying to achieve similar goals because I know how it feels lonely sometimes. Yeah, that's a little bit.
And why did you choose radiology and when did you make that decision?
Yeah, so radiology is something I think that's relatable to many people. Radiology is something that I did not have a lot of contact during medical school. I did have two professors, but they were just anatomy professors. They were not really radiology professors. And I really liked being a teacher assistant during medical school, and I used to be responsible for teaching both histology, anatomy, and pathology in an integrated way. So I noticed that I liked integrating systems and teaching, the academic part of medicine. And towards the end of medical school, I was still not completely sure what I was going to do, but I knew I wanted to be a professor. So when I started this process, I still didn't know I wanted radiology. I was considering it. So I applied to a research fellowship in radiology because I was already starting to get inclined to it. Because just as context, my dad is he's a doctor and he's a ultrasound doctor. In Brazil, you can be a ultrasonographist, right? Not a radiologist. And I liked what he did. So I thought, maybe I do radiology, you know. And doing the research fellowship, I really fell in love with it. So that's how I made my mind about radiology.
Why US and not another country?
Yeah, so actually, when I decided to leave Brazil, which was also late, I was already in the last year of medical school. I had traveled to Canada for the first time, and it was the first time that I did a trip alone. So it was something memorable. And I fell in love with Canada. You know, I thought, oh my God, this place is great. People are so like nice, educated, and you know, there are so many opportunities here. I went to Toronto at the time, and I like gave a little like search on Google about how to be a doctor here, you know, and I saw it was terrible, just terrible. The whole process is very convoluted and crazy. And I saw that another possibility would be doing the USMLE, so getting the certification in the US and then working in Canada. So that was the original plan. I was going to do the USMLE and then try to just work in Canada, you know. But then I started doing the research fellowship here, and I really liked here. And Boston is just like Toronto, honestly. There's also the fact that I met my husband, and my husband is from here. So this also helped make the decision that the US might be better to just stay long term, you know.
And when did you start preparing for the USMLE steps?
So this trip that I did was in the year before last of medical school. So I was in the 5th year of medical school in Brazil. And that's when I first thought about it. Then I didn't continue because I thought it was too hard. Didn't start studying at all. Then still on the year before last of medical school, I decided at some point that I couldn't take this away from my mind. So I started in 2019 was the first time I saw first aid. But 2020, that's when I actually sat down like with a regular schedule to start studying. And I took step 1 in 2022, June 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So there was an interval of 1.5 years on that.
What study materials did you use for step 1?
Like everyone, I started like crazy, like seeing all sorts of things at the same time, not very well organized. I didn't know what to do. Eventually, after several failures, I stuck to Bars and Beyond as videos to guide myself. U-World, of course. I also saw the videos from Patoma and Anki.
And how did you organize your time for step one preparation, your daily routine, and how long was your preparation period?
So my daily routine, I used to I had the Boards and Beyond videos. I started watching all videos of a certain system. So I watched all videos of cardiology, let's say, at once without doing any questions, just watch them. At some point, I got more like fluent in English, let's say, and I started putting it at 2.5 times. It was really just to give me an overview. So Dr. Ryan was talking very quickly. And after watching these videos, maybe for 2 days or so, I would then do U-World questions. I try to do 40 questions a day and correct all of them in the same day. If I knew I would not be able to correct all of them in the same day, I would decrease the number of questions in my block. So let's say I just don't have a lot of time, I will do just 20 and I will correct the 20.
Now let's focus on step 2. What study materials did you use for step 2?
So when I did step 1, it was still graded. So I knew I had built a strong foundation on step 1. What I did for step 2, I excluded the videos and I just went right to the questions. So I did the same thing of trying to do 40 questions a day and correcting these 40 questions. And as I made mistakes, I unlocked cards on my Anki. So I had the Anki deck, and I also had another small deck where I was adding my own flashcards of things that I made mistakes. Every time I made a mistake, I went to the search bar on Anki and unlocked the cards that were related to that subject that I got wrong. Just the specific thing that I got wrong, not the entire subject, Or I made a card about the subject that I got wrong. Then I would review that every day.
And how did you organize your time for step 2 preparation?
Okay, so I took step 1, I think it was June or July, June 2022. And I took step 3, March 2023. Okay. And at that time, I had already graduated medical school. So my preparation for step 2, I had much more time because I was only doing shifts as a doctor, because in Brazil you can work. But I was able to make my schedule. So I would give like maybe 3 shifts a week. Little, it was little. And I would study the rest of the time, while I was also doing a research course. So I had a lot of flexibility with my time. So it was a good length, right? Like it's still a lot of time from June to March, but I had a lot of time free also. Yeah.
And if you were to look back, if you had to do the steps again, what would you do differently?
The only thing that I would have done differently was the beginning of my preparation for step 1. I think is very common, like almost universal, that when we start studying and we see the question bank with 4,000, 5,000 questions, we think the more questions I do, that means that this is proportional to how much I'm advancing in knowledge. And that's not true. You can start seeing, you can be 3,000 questions done on U-World and still have the knowledge of 10 questions if you did not learn with each of these questions. So I think it's not a good metric to see the number of questions that you did, how many passes on U-World. That's not what matters most. What matters most is if you are learning with each of these questions. So what I would have changed is I would not be counting how many questions I did, I would be more interested in, did I learn the concept on each of these questions? And do I still know this concept by seeing it again on Anki?
Another topic is medical research. How important is to do research for radiology?
It is important for direct and indirect reasons. So the number of publications, the time you've done research, where you did your research, all of these are objective metrics that are used, So as just giving a number, it would be like great if you had 10 papers. This would put you in a very competitive spot, okay? You don't need to have 10 papers to enter radiology, right? But if you have, that's a great goal, a great target, because this would make you a very competitive applicant. 10 papers in the radiology subject, ideally. This is not mandatory, but that would be the goal, the highest standard that you would get. This is a direct metric. However, there are indirect metrics that are even more important, and they are related to research. If you have 10 papers in radiology, this means that you spent a lot of time doing research. If you spent a lot of time doing research, this means that you probably made a very good connection with whoever was the radiologist that was working with you. Building a strong connection with someone that will advocate for you is very important, because they can be used as a proof that you are someone that is good to work with. They can talk about your work ethic. They can talk about you as a professional, which is not the same as if you had someone from your home country saying that. Like, it's much more, it has much more weight, someone from here, because everything that someone from here says can be held against them, like, you have to be honest about your letters of recommendation here, like, because you are talking to people that actually know you.
And what advice would you give to someone who wants to start research in radiology?
I think that's probably if I could ask anyone that will watch this interview to remember something, I would say it's what I'm gonna say now. Your radiology, your research position in the US is the first time that you start building your story here. So you may be an amazing person in Peru or in Brazil, and you have several professors that love you, and they have a lot of evidence of why you are great. This doesn't automatically transfer to the US. So your first position here is very important, both for you to start building your career and how people see you, and also for yourself. Because if you put yourself in a bad place or in a bad situation, this will have a strong impact on your self-worth, in your mental health, So where you go in your research position is very important for many reasons. Said that, how do you get yourself in a good place? And what is a good place? A good place is where you will be under people that are respectful radiologists that want the best for you, right? And also a place where you can be good. How you do that? You need to go to a place where you are prepared to go to. That's the only thing that's the best thing that you can do for yourself. Just go to a research position when you are prepared. And what is prepared? You know how to do a little bit of analysis at least. What the job entails, And the best way for you to that is preparing. What I have done is I inscribed to a research course, which is called the Principles and Practice of Clinical Research. It's a great course. They really try to set you up for success. If you are a good student there, the professor can write you a letter of recommendation that can help you get a research position later. And I'm saying that because I have no affiliation to this course, nothing. But I did the research course, and I did well on the course while I was studying for the steps. And they were very supportive of me. And with their recommendation, and not only the recommendation, but the reassurance that I had that, okay, I went through this course, so I'm at least a little prepared. With both the recommendation and this feeling, I applied to the master's in Harvard, and I also applied to the research fellowship at Boston Children's, which is also affiliated to Harvard. I'm not someone super confident, so I applied to these things kind of nervous, and I would not have applied if I did not have the reassurance that I knew at least a little bit, So I would strongly advocate that you prepare before you go to a research fellowship. It doesn't have to be PPCR. It can be another course, but this is one that I know it's good,
Could you share your experience as research fellow?
Yeah, so as a research fellow, what is my daily basis? I either go to the hospital to meet with the radiologists that I work with, or I stay at home and I work remotely. This is actually where I now work sometimes. And when I am with them, when I have a meeting with them, we talk about research ideas that they have, because generally they are the ones to ideate to tell how the research will be. And we discuss that. And I can be involved on doing the retrospective data collection. So I go to the medical record. There are some softwares that we use where we can put terms and make lists that will later go on and clean and define a study population. This is a part of the work, so data collection. Another part is applying inclusion and exclusion criteria for that data collection. So after I have my primary list, I will again go to the medical record and see if they have some disease that would take them away from my pool of subjects. Done that, I start, I can either organize a work list for the radiologists to collect measurements, because I worked as a musculoskeletal radiology research fellow. So several of the things that we study is are measurements affected by different imaging techniques. So the radiologist has to go there and draw an angle or make some evaluation in the image. And then I would give them the work list and they would collect this data by themselves, like do and write it down, or I would sit down by their side and write down what they are telling me. So then I have my database. With that database, then I do the analysis. I input that either on Stata, or which is a statistical software, or I use RStudio and I make a code to analyze that data. I build graphs. I also, after I have the data, I write the materials and methods. I show the data to the radiologists for them to evaluate if we need to change something, add something. Then I write the introduction and discussion of my draft and I send to them. This is the whole process of what I do. There is also submissions, submitting abstracts, and then if they get accepted, writing the presentation and presenting in conferences. I just came back from Hawaii. It was a conference that we presented some of our projects. And that's basically it, it's like it's all aspects of.
And what skills do you think are important for research in radiology? For example, statistical analysis, writing, teamwork, discipline, or another?
So there are things that are important for the candidate to bring, which is, I think, understanding English is one of something that it can be underrated sometimes, but I think you should come look for a research position once you know how to communicate at least okay, like you can communicate well. Second, the majority of research fellows don't know how to do analysis, like just putting it like more directly. So it's not required that you know statistical analysis. However, if you do know, you will be way ahead, because when you come to a department, there generally is a statistician, but this statistician has a lot of projects to go over, a lot of projects. And if you always wait for the statistician, you will produce so much less, So if you know how to do some basic analysis, how to organize a data set, how to run t-tests, how to run Wilcoxon signed rank test, this type of the tests that are the most common, or know how to use Excel. And by knowing, I mean very basic things, or at least know how to use ChatGPT so that you can go there and ask him, hey, how do I do this, So you have to be someone proactive that has a little bit of previous knowledge, but also a lot of proactive learning, You need to be able to go search for answers. So I think this is one of the most important things for a research fellow. And the other thing is you need to either like research, I think that's important, or if you don't like research, you need to be someone very contempt with situations in life, so because research takes time, and if you hate this type of work where you sit down in a computer and you do the same thing for hours and hours by yourself, this might be bad for your mental health. But if you're someone that is fine with that, then you'll be okay.
And now about clinical experience, what rotations did you do in the US?
So that's related to the fact that I decided late to do this whole process, right? I was already about to finish medical school. And when you start searching for things, everyone says you need to do clerkships because clerkships, they are much more valuable than observerships, which is somewhat true. So given that I was finishing, I had to do something that would count towards my medical school credits. So there were limited things that I could apply for. So I did 2 rotations in OBGYN. I came to University of Miami and to Florida International University, which were some of the only programs that accepted students without step 1. I did not have step 1 at the time. So I did 2 rotations in OBGYN. I think they were very important. And I think people should do rotations, at least 1 rotation, the earliest they can, for a reason. I think it's a good test drive if you would be okay in the US, because you see how the thing is, how the system is, and if you like it. So it's a good test for you to give up if you don't like it. However, in terms of what is the best rotation for you to do for your CV, probably the latest one is the better. It's the opposite. The more prepared you are and the more targeted you are, like I know that I'm doing a rotation in a place that I will actually try to get in, that's the most beneficial for your application and for your CV. On that note, I did 1 more rotation. When I did rotate, I did sit down with my mentors at Boston Children's. Like I sat down with the radiologist there. So this could be considered a rotation, but it was throughout these years that I worked as a research fellow. But close to the application, I also did a rotation in one of the hospitals that I was applying to. And I think that's very helpful for people to know you.
About mentorship, what role do mentors play in the match process, especially in a competitive specialty like radiology?
They are very important. Okay. So when you apply for a very competitive specialty, and within a very competitive specialty, you apply also to the very competitive hospital within the very competitive specialty. You need to basically be extremely well-rounded. And by well-rounded, I mean you have to be a wonderful applicant, but you also need to have someone that will say, she is a wonderful applicant, And this person that will say that is generally your mentor. Said that, there are also instances where you are not a wonderful applicant, you have some flaws. And if you have a good mentor, you are still going to get into a great place. This means that having a wonderful mentor might be more important than being a great applicant. That's sad, but that's true, because a wonderful, and what do I mean by a mentor? It's a person that will take their time to send emails or to help you get into some program. It can be their own program or another program, okay? I never wanted to rely on that because first when I started all of this, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a mentor, so if I would rely in someone out of their good heart helping me, I think that would be not a very smart decision. So what I tried to do was to become a great applicant so that even that I didn't have anyone, I would get somewhere, somewhere good. But this doesn't change the fact that having a mentor is extremely important.
The next question is a follow-up to the previous one. How did you get your letters of recommendations?
Okay. My letters of recommendation were 2 from the radiologists, the most senior radiologists I work with. Another one from a radiologist that was a more junior radiologist. Another one was from a orthopedic surgeon that I also work with. And the last one was from an internal medicine doctor that I did a rotation with. Okay. So these, I just talked about 5 letters. You can only submit 4, right? So I got an extra one in case I had problems. I did have problems. At some point, one of the doctors took a long time to send, so it was good that I had an extra one just in case, you know. But depending on the program, I sent 4 of them, or like another 4, you know. But getting letters of recommendation, all of these people knew me extremely well. All right, I worked with them for 3 years intensely, you know. So what is important in a letter of recommendation? The most important thing is being an extremely strong letter. And for it to be extremely strong, given that you won't see in some cases, you need to really trust that person loves you, you know? Or that is someone that even that doesn't love you will write something extremely strong just because they are very nice, you know, very nice people or something, you know? This is the most important point. The second most important point is it has to be from someone that is highly respected. And how do you know that? Academic rank. So ideally, you should have letters from people in high positions in their institutions. So is it a full professor? You know, is it a assistant professor? You know, like it has some position, or is a chair of something? You know, this does matter. You know, I don't think it matters more than how strong like how nicely the person talks about you, you know, and also how well this person knows how to write letters, because someone that already wrote letters before, someone that understands this process knows how to write an impactful letter. People that never wrote that don't know how to write the good letter, you know. This is important, you know, like generic letters are often ignored by selection committees, you know. So the letter, what's written, who wrote, and how well this person knows you. So if you have a long relationship, it's better. And again, this goes back to being in a situation where you can work for a long time with someone and that you can show your work to them.
Could you share some tips for writing a great personal statement?
Yeah, so this is a common tip that people give, but start early. That's the most like probably important one, because you will go over it so many times. And also, once you start writing, don't delete all the time, you know. Keep writing, write repetitive things, write things that for sure won't stay, but start writing, because once you go back and you read again, you think, no, but maybe I can add this or add that, you know. And keep saving different versions so that you don't lose your thoughts, right? So this is the first thing, start early and actually write. Second thing, you need to read a little bit about storytelling and what are good personal statements. So one thing to search about is the story of the us, the self, and the now. This is something like people can give a little search about. This is like a structure for storytelling. Storytelling principles in general. And also reading examples. That is a very good book that a friend of mine recommended to me. I will search here the name. It's a book about different personal statements that got people accepted into Harvard for college. And then you read that and you see the different styles. There is also a evaluation, like that details what the personal statement is bringing, made by the Harvard Catalyst team. So you read the actual personal statement, you see why it's good, why it's bad, you know, and it's great for you to identify with some of them, and this helps you write your own. Let me see here the name. Harvard essays, personal statement book. Yeah, it's 50 successful Harvard application essays. What worked for them can help you get into the college of your choice. It's a little red book with a yellow thing. Very good. I recommend that one. And just giving you a general structure about personal statements. It's very common for you to start with a moment in time that was very important for you. And then you make a sensorial description of that. So I remember hearing the steps of someone coming my direction when something happened. Anyway, so you start giving like a more sensorial description of something. And then from that, you start writing, like an actual narrative text. And for you to know which moment to start talking about, try to think about moments in your life that were deeply emotional to you, something that really marked your life, that when you think about you feel sad or you feel happy, or it defines your life in some way. This is just one of the ways of writing personal statement. There are several ways, but this is a very, very common way.
And when applying to programs or hospital, there is something called signaling. Could you explain this and how you organize it?
So signaling is something very recent. There are already some papers talking about how people are doing it and the outcomes of how they are doing it. So I think it's important to go check these papers. Just as a general overview of what is signaling. In radiology, we had six golden signals and 6 silver signals. I think this year they are adding a little more silver ones. But anyway, independently of the specialty, you generally have golden and silver signals. The programs know what is the signal that you are giving them, or if you don't give them signals at all. So they will know that you gave them a silver signal. And by the signal, they know they have a preview of what is going to be their position on your rank, because it's correlated, right? If you told them before the interview that they are a silver program in radiology, this means that they are at least 7th on your list, correct? Because there are another 6 golden ones before that you said they are more valuable than the 6 silver ones, right? So they are either anywhere from 7 to 12 on your list. This is kind of terrible in some ways, because there are programs that you would be very happy going. And maybe these are the ones that are more feasible to you, because you are the type of applicant that would match there. But because you want to try to send a golden signal to a quote unquote more prestigious program, you kind of have to tell the other program up front that they are not as desirable to you. Okay, so this is the whole signal thing. How you decide where to send your signals. It's very important that you know which type of candidate you are, because you should try to send golden signals to programs that seem a little out of your reach. Maybe you will try to say, let's say you are someone that has a few, like one red flag, let's say. But you still want to try to send your golden signal to Harvard or to UCSF, because, why not try? So you want to send it there. But depending on what type of candidate you are, you may send 1 or 2 or 3 to these type of reach programs. And the other golden ones you will send to programs that are more compatible to the type of applicant you are. There is a lot of luck and speculation on that, because it's hard for you to define what type of candidate you are. But a good way to do that is see how, try to know or have an idea of where the other IMGs applying to the same specialty as you, where they stand. Do you have higher scores than them? Do you have more publications? Do you have stronger contacts? Do you have, all the things that we do for an application? Try to see the other good candidates and see where they stand and where you stand, and talk to them about that. if you notice that you are a very strong candidate, you can give yourself this, you can be more risky and give golden signals to more like rich programs than you would if you were a little worse candidate, you know. How I did it. I sent, I had 6 golden signals. I sent 4. I sent 4 golden signals to very like prestigious institutions. And I sent another 2 to also extremely great institutions, but they were not Ivy Leagues, or, you know, they were very still very good competitive, but they were theoretically not as high ranked as these other 4. This is kind of aggressive approach. You know, generally people say send 2 to reach programs. But after talking a lot, I thought that I should probably try to do that, you know. And the other 6 I sent to also very good programs, but that they were maybe 1 tier lower than those 4 very good ones, you know. I concentrated my signals, my geographic location, my urban preferences. I made all of them align. So I sent almost all my signals to Boston or the Northeast, you know, because that's where I am, that's where I know people. So everything aligned, you know. I didn't do this thing of I will put my geographic location here, but I will put my signal there because this will spread my chances and increase. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you should try to target places. I think that's more it ends up better, you know. Yeah.
Now let's talk about interviews. How did you prepare for that stage?
So one thing is a preparation that happens in life. It's just like, given that I've been here for so long, I just improve my fluency. But if that's something that is still a problem, you should really tackle that. You know, like if you're still not comfortable talking English, I would probably the most important thing is getting a teacher, you know, and exercising that, or maybe a Omigo account or something, or, you know, and then talking in in English. That's the most important thing. What I have done, I was told that I didn't need to get interview coach or something, but I wanted just to make sure, just to be calm, no. So I got 1 month of classes. I had like 2 classes a week, and I went through the most common questions in interviews with someone that already had some experience with interviews, you know, just so I could practice or think about some of the questions and answer like in a way that would be appropriate, you know.
And how long did each interview last?
It depends on the program, but generally each individual interview with a person is like 15 minutes. But each program will have a different number of people interviewing. Generally, it's like 4 people. So it's the PD, one APD sometimes, or either. So the PD generally interviews you, but there is also either a APD or an attending that is older in the institution, and also a chief resident, and sometimes another resident that is not the chief, you know. So generally 4 people. A few places had more. The longest one I had was with a program that was interviewing me both for the clinical path or the research investigator pathway. So I kind of had 2 combined interviews. I didn't even know I would have 2 combined. But in the end, it was generally any interview goes the entire morning. If I always put in the morning because I'm more awake in the morning. So it would start anywhere like 8 a.m. and go until noon or 1. So it's a long time because there are intervals between the interviews. There are presentations. The program shows the program to you, you know. You can watch lectures with the current residents online by Zoom. So it's a very long process.
And was there any question during the interviews that surprised you?
This This one didn't surprise me, but it was the one that I was more uncomfortable with, let's say. There was an interview that the interviewer said, so you will make the questions. I said, okay. Like generally in a 15-minute interview, they start talking and we talk and and then towards the end you have space to ask questions in like 2 or 3 minutes. But this case was 15 minutes of me talking, So it's like I don't have questions, like this many questions. So that was surprising. That one caught me kind of as a surprise. But aside from that, all the questions are like very standard, and at some point the interview just becomes a conversation. And these are the best interviews, when you are able to make that become a conversation.
How did you feel when you received the news that you match into radiology?
So that I match into, so there are 2 days, right? That is one, the first day where you find out that you match into radiology, which is the 17 in our case. And then Friday, you find out where, right? So being completely honest with you, given that I knew that the likelihood of matching was higher at that point because of the number of interviews, I was very happy on the first day and relieved. I was mostly relieved and happy, because like I saw the email saying, congratulations, you have matched. And this is an email that we wait for, like in my case, I waited for 5 years. So it was a very strong feeling of relief. Happiness I felt on Friday, because I found out where I matched and that I matched on my number one choice. And this kind of gives you a feeling of like, that's kind of stupid, but that's the feeling that life is fair, like because you worked so much, and you hoped and you prayed and you cried and you expect for that moment, and you don't want to disappoint people, and there are so many feelings that are kind of connected to that, and then you finally actually see what you expected to see. So this gives you a feeling like, thank you God that things have a cause and a consequence, like it's kind of that feeling.
Now, looking forward, now that you have matched, how do you feel about your future in radiology and your training in the US?
So I'm very excited, I'm just excited. I just moved to Framingham, where I will do my transitional year. Of course, I'm slightly concerned about how that's gonna go because like it's heavy, some of the months are heavy. But looking to radiology, I'm very excited to kind of show who I am, because you spend these 3 years or less, hopefully less for the majority of people, but you spend some time doing research and you show your research side, but you kind of lose a little bit your clinical side and how you contribute to a team, a team of clinicians. So I'm looking forward to going back to that, showing what I am as a resident, showing what I can contribute to the program, that I am worth the investment that they did by accepting me, and also looking forward to kind of the next step of my life, finally seeing the end of this tunnel, like I got into residency. Now what's gonna be the rest of my life? Like what I want to be as an attending. What is the dream profession after I finish residency? In my case, I know that is something with graduate medical education. Like I really want to be involved in the program. So maybe try to be a APD at some point, or APD much later in life. That's what I would love to do. But let's see. We don't know.
Who would you like to thank you for your success?
If I were to say the entire list, we would be for another 3 hours. um, so first of all, my parents, of course, like either parents or the people that love you are the ones that give you the strength to go through all of that. So my parents, they did that for me. My parents and my brothers, they supported me in every step of it. My husband, that dealt, he's not a doctor, so he had to deal with things that he was not used to, like me telling him to, hey, I need to study the entire night. Can you go to another room? Things like that, you know. And also the mentors that I had, right? So Sarah and Andy are my mentors at Children's. They don't even call themselves my mentors, but they are my bosses, you know. But they did more than mentors would do, you know. I owe so much to them. Professor Fragni, which is the main professor and kind of the director of that course that I talked about, the principles and practice of clinical research. My friend Carol is a Brigham internal medicine resident, but when I met her, she was a research fellow like me. So the friends that you make in this path and that are trying to achieve similar things to you, they are very important. Bruno Lima is an internal medicine physician that wrote my letter of recommendation, and that gave me several advice on this whole path. And also all of my other friends, you know, and other family members that just supported me so much, you know, my school, everyone. Anyway, I would really go over for a long time, but there are truly, maybe I could like just continuously say like maybe 300 people that helped me in some way, you know, but these were the people that helped me the most.
And this is the end of the interview. Any final words for the audience?
Yes, so when I started all of this, there was nothing, you know. I didn't have a friend that was here. I didn't have a mentor. My school didn't have, I think there were 2 people that did this process before me and they were not there. So when I started, it felt pretty impossible or extremely hard. It was very hard, I won't lie, and it was long, but it was not impossible at all. And if it was not impossible to me, it's not impossible to anyone. And what is possible is beyond what you think when you start. I did not think that I would get into Harvard. I would not think that I would be so happy throughout these years, even working a lot. But with perseverance and with a mind setting the goal that you have, you can achieve anything. And I promise you that if you are someone that works hard, you will meet several people in your way that will want to support you simply because you work hard. The amount of wonderful people that you meet that simply want you to succeed because you are hardworking, they are enormous, you know. And it's really rewarding to make these friendships and connections. So when we start, we think too much about the day we match, but this whole path is also very rewarding and worth doing.